65th anniversary of the Communist Revolution in China, a time for national pride and celebration, one might think. If you've been keeping up with recent happenings, you will know that there have been large gatherings and protests going on in Hong Kong. Tens of thousands of protesters have been out on the streets. Protests still going on as I speak. The protesters, many students, young people, pro-democracy activists, want universal suffrage, and they want Hong Kong's chief executive CY Leung to resign. The chief executive has not reacted warmly to the protests or protesters, unsurprisingly. A couple of days ago, the police response was to use tear gas against some of the protesters to disperse them. If the intention was to intimidate, make the protesters go home, make the crowds die down, then that clearly has failed. What are these latest protests about? Well, China's government issued a ruling limiting who could stand in the 2017 leadership election. Candidates are to be screened by Beijing. This has angered many people. Understandably so, I would say. Hong Kong was under British colonial rule for a long time, as you may be aware. It was handed to the Chinese government in 1997 under a two systems, one country agreement. Protests are not something new in Hong Kong. A national security law, Article 23, was proposed by China's government, but it was dropped after large protests in Hong Kong. And this happened over 10 years ago. Now, from what I've been able to observe of these demonstrations, checking stuff out online, it all seems considerably peaceful and polite so far. In contrast to some protests and Occupy movements I've seen over the past few years around the world, from what I can tell from the outside looking in, this latest Hong Kong protest, it looks very orderly. It doesn't look as if the crowds are interested in or eager for violence, does it? That's my impression anyway. Now, the protesters have called for the chief executive to stand down by tomorrow, Thursday. Perhaps China's government might offer CY Leung as a sacrifice, so to speak, make him step down. I don't know, maybe Beijing's response will be more uncompromising. I think many government officials in Beijing might be getting nervous right now. I've heard that the protests have been heavily censored in mainland China, and this doesn't surprise me. Although the communist regime will have many supporters and loyalists in Hong Kong, I think it's worth pointing out that a lot of the older generation in Hong Kong left mainland China to get away from the rule of the communists. It's a tricky situation for the communist government. They don't want to be seen to be caving in, as it were, to the demands of the protesters and this pro-democracy movement. Yeah, as I've noticed journalists already pointing out, this could set a dangerous precedent for the communist regime. And I'm thinking in particular of provinces like Xinjiang and Tibet. You can tell the Chinese government is worried, with good reason, I would say. They don't want the protests spreading to the mainland. There's been talk of external forces meddling in the affairs of China. This is an internal matter. That's been the sort of rhetoric recently. Yeah. So yeah, this is a situation I'll be keeping a close eye on in the days ahead. I truly hope it all stays peaceful. I wouldn't want it to turn nasty. I don't want to see people getting hurt. It's one of the most densely populated areas in the world, Hong Kong. More than 7 million people in, what, 426 square miles, I believe? Yeah, 426. Yeah. Not a great deal of landmass, a lot of people there. What do you think of when Hong Kong is mentioned? I think of what comes to mind first. Capitalism, corporate headquarters, yeah. It's a service economy today. It's a major hub of international trade in the Asia-Pacific region. Another thing I think of when I think of Hong Kong is it's a place where East meets West. Yeah. I'd like to go visit at some point in the near future. It's a place that's interested me for quite a while, yeah. The view from Victoria Peak that you see in nighttime photos, it just looks amazing, doesn't it? Just very, very striking. Yeah. Anyway, I'll see you next time, ladies and gentlemen. Until then, take care of yourselves. Peace.